you don't have organic content that people can go binge watch and build trust with and everything else, ain't nobody trusting you. Started to get into other side hustles and different things. And eventually I started flipping houses. Fast forward, since then I flipped probably like 600-700 homes.
Joining us today is Ryan Pineda, a highly accomplished entrepreneur, real estate investor, and the visionary behind the podcast, Wealthy Way. His platform empowers individuals to build wealth while living a balanced and purpose-driven life.
Now we have a president who I'm pretty certain is not gonna let us go into a recession. Do your main thing better. Or pick one of the side hustles and really go all in at it, because that's how you'll make 200 grand, 300 grand, or $1 million or whatever. You know, potentially no capital gains tax or income tax. Like he's proposing a lot of things that we've just never seen before. So the young people who are scared, grow up and take a risk.
I'm going to get him to sort of explain what he's done, but he's had guests from all around the world, some notable people like Grant Cardone, Hormozy, and a lot of others that you probably have followed. So if you're interested, then definitely keep watching. Guys, welcome back to Personal Finance with Ravi Sharma. My name's Ravi, and welcome to Ryan Pineda. How are you, mate?
Hey, man. Happy to be here.
It's weird because you're saying happy to be here on the channel, but I'm in your studio in Vegas.
So you're happy to be here too. We're both happy to be here.
We're both happy, mate.
Yeah.
Now, for the people that are watching and have never come across your content, never come across your nice hairstyle.
There we go.
Can you briefly walk us through what you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, the 2-minute version is before all the business stuff, I was a professional baseball player. So, you know, here in the States, I got drafted by the Oakland A's. And so I played professional baseball for 8 years. Didn't make much money doing it, though, because I was in the minor leagues and I never made it to the big leagues. So I had to start working on the side, and that got me into entrepreneurship. So got my real estate license in 2010. So I was a realtor, which, you know, would just be like a sales agent where you guys are at, for 8 years. And I hated it. And, after a couple of years, I was licensed for 8 years, but I practiced for like 2. But, after a couple of years, realized it wasn't for me. Started to get into other side hustles and different things. Then eventually I started flipping houses, about 2015. And that was the first real, successful big money thing I did. Fast forward since then, I flipped probably like 600-700 homes.
Wow.
That then led to a bunch of other businesses. So, I started getting on social media, talking about flipping houses. That then led to an education company, so that turned into an 8-figure business. Started other businesses along the way, tax firm, brokerage. I had a brokerage with 200 agents as well.
Oh, wow.
At one point.
So a brokerage being someone who sales agents or listing agents would work under?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So we had a brokerage, got rid of that, sold some businesses, shut down some businesses along the way. And, as it stands today, we do the education. I still flip houses. I still, we do lead generation as well for real estate investors. And so that's a big part of what we do. So yeah, that's the main stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now
make content.
Yeah, well, that's a perfect segue because for me, when I started my journey with social media and trying to build out Search Property and the YouTube channel, one of the people that I looked up to was yourself, and I still look up to you.
Thank you.
And I think it was primarily because real estate has always been, whenever you thought about it, it was some old dude that's like in his suit, and that's what the persona was, at least back in Australia as well. And so when I saw you coming in with your unique style and going, okay, I can make videos about X, Y, and Z, and it doesn't just have to be about real estate every single time. That's what motivated me to go, okay, there might be a different way to approach this. Now, I'm not very familiar with other real estate people in the content space here in America, but was that quite different, the way that you approached it versus what was already happening in the space?
100%. Yeah, I think... I got on YouTube around 2020 during COVID, and I also got on TikTok at that time because I was just like, you know what, I'm going to go all in on this content thing. I'm locked up in my house anyway, so what am I going to do? So I started studying what people were doing, and so I studied what the biggest, we would call them finance YouTubers were doing at the time. Oh, yeah. So I was my friends like Graham Stephan and Meet Kevin and these guys. I was watching we weren't friends at the time. We became friends, but I started watching what they were doing. I was like, okay, that's interesting. They kind of talk about all these different topics. And then I watched, other real estate guys who were much smaller, and I looked at their content, and I decided like, okay, like I think there's a way to blend like what works at a big level, but also teach tactical things that are pretty boring at the end of the day to those who actually really want to learn how to flip houses and invest.
Yeah, nice. And I suppose when you started on YouTube and on the socials, I think you went viral for the couch flipping stuff, right?
Yep.
You were the couch flipping guy. I remember actually before I came on this trip, I had said to a couple of guys in my team, I was like, hey, look, I'm going to end up shooting with someone there. It's like, oh, who are you shooting with? I was like, oh, Ryan. And they're like, Ryan Serhant. And because the Netflix show had just come out. And I was like, no, Ryan Pineda. They're like, oh, he's the couch flipping dude. And I was like, that's interesting because you probably haven't done couch flipping for like years.
Yep.
But you're still like
known for
have that as a brand, right?
Yeah, I do. It's funny because that video, that's the first thing that I ever did that went viral. And it's funny because, it went like baby viral initially for me. Like, I just started the channel, so it got like a couple thousand views. I was like, dude, this is crazy. Like, people really like that. And it was like 90 days later, all of a sudden, it just took off for whatever reason. And it just started to go viral and get tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands of views. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. It like literally started an industry that didn't exist. And, for me, I remember when I made the video, this was in 2020. I hadn't done it since like 2014. So it had been like 6 years. But I was like, man, I remember I was doing this thing that was so weird, but it made such good money. And I think it will help people because nobody knows about it. So I was like, all right, guys, so this is the best side hustle you've never heard about. I guarantee nobody's talking about it because it's just not something you learn. I just randomly figured it out. And I just detailed it step by step. I was like, here's what you do. Here's how you find a couch. Here's the best ones. Here's how you price it. Here's how you make the listing. Like super detailed. Like clearly I knew what I was talking about, right? And sure enough, you go look at the comments, people were like, dude, I just made $300. I just made $200. I just made $1,000 on this free couch. It was nuts. People were like, this is crazy how easy this is. And then it went viral and eventually literally created a whole industry where now they have like couch flipping conferences.
Get out of here.
I swear, people have wanted me to speak at them. There's like couch flipping Facebook groups where they're like masterminding, trying to figure out how to make it better. And it's kind of funny, dude. I joined one like a couple of years ago because somebody's like, dude, Ryan, there's a couch flipping group. I was like, what? And there's like thousands of people in it. I was like, I'm just going to join it and see what it's all about. So I join it and then like everybody's talking about it. And I was like, I wonder what's going to happen if I post.
Oh, no.
So I post and I'm just like, hey guys, like, dude, it's super cool to like see that this is happening. And everybody's like, no way, that's not him.
Yeah, it must be a fan page.
Yeah, I was like, no, dude, like, this is tight. And then it's funny because I made a post because I was like, you know what? I want to interview some of you guys that have like really built this out. So if you want to be interviewed, comment under here like what you're doing, and I'm gonna pick some people that are doing some cool stuff. And they're like, this is fake. And then I ended up making a video and it's cool.
Oh, so you ended up putting up a video where you interviewed these guys?
Yeah.
That's a sick concept.
It was cool.
So did you find it hard to pivot from the couch flipping content to then, okay, I'm going down a different path here? Obviously, the audience that might be going for the couch flipping aren't really maybe interested in the real estate flipping because there's obviously barriers to entry, maybe the cost element to it.
Yeah, I actually think they are the same people because my content I make is literally me. And so I think if it's helpful for me, then obviously that person who's watching it probably wants to go down a similar path. So with the couch flipping, once again, I had already been making real estate content before that. And so people like found me through the couch flipping thing, and then they started watching the real estate stuff. And I'm talking about how real estate is actually, you can flip houses with no money. You can get started. How, I talk about my story of how I was a couch flipper and eventually I became a real estate investor. And that actually became the theme for most of them. Most of them were like, dude, I'm going to flip couches right now just to get by, but I'm going to use that to like literally I can't even tell you how many people have flipped couches to save up enough money to join one of my programs to then learn how to flip houses. So it was actually very congruent Because the person who's trying to hustle and flip and make money,
It's the same.
you don't care what you're flipping. You'll flip a Pokemon card. You'll flip a couch. I mean, I was that guy. I was flipping Pokemon cards. I flipped cell phones. I flip couches. I now flip houses. Like it's all the same.
It's I guess it's a similarity between that and salespeople. Some people love the product.
Yep.
But then some people just love the process of selling.
Yep.
And so the hustling nature of those people, I can see how they would translate across. So now in your organization, you've got quite a few people here. You've got like a couple of offices and things like that. And we were talking off camera about that. But how big is the team now? What does it look like? And, you've scaled it from 2020, which I assume was just yourself at that time?
No, I mean, I already had a big house flipping operation at that point. I would say in 2020, I maybe had 10 employees across, and I was doing over 100 deals a year, flipping houses. So we had a lot of projects going on. But yeah, today, I mean, right now, I'd say we have 40 to 50 employees around there. At my peak, across when I had lots, like even more businesses, we had almost 100.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you've had businesses where you've sold them, closed them down. What's your take on the whole concept of scope of focus? Is it you're better off just focusing on the one business versus having your mindset spread across multiple things? What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, great question. So very few people can actually manage multiple things. Like I would guess 99% of people should focus on one thing, myself included. Now everything I do is very congruent. So I don't even think I'm doing really multiple things. Like I think they all play into the same thing. So it's like, my real estate investing business, like clearly that's what I've been doing for the last decade. It is what it is. Well, education is just kind of like a natural part of that.
So they're like extensions rather than completely different.
Yeah, it's not completely different at all. I'm teaching them how to do what I do, right? Lead generation was literally me generating leads for myself. And then my students are like, dude, like we need leads. Can you get us leads? And so then that was just, I already had the students. So it's like, all right, cool. Like let's do lead gen with that. And then, I have been doing content, which then feeds all the businesses and helps me raise money for my real estate business, to buy houses and apartments and all these things. So it's like now currently they all really are just one thing, even though, they got separate entities. They all do operate their own ways. They got different people in them. But yeah, I would say now I'm very singularly focused on just kind of like this real estate thing. Whereas before I did have lots of businesses in totally different industries where, dude, that's really hard to do. And on top of that, even though some were very successful, others were not, it takes away. Like you have 24 hours in a day. You have so much mental bandwidth. And if I was to look back in hindsight, I would say that had I just focused, on the core thing and I kind of avoided those other things, I would have avoided a lot of headache, a lot of stress, lawsuits, losses, it would have been significantly easier had I did that.
Well, I think it's similar when people think about investing as well, like personal investing. You go, you need to diversify, Whereas sometimes you're better off just going balls deep in one thing that you know really, really well. And
people should not diversify.
Yeah, okay, because I'm in the same boat as you.
Yeah, like when you don't have money, you can't diversify. You have to get good at one thing. That's how you make money. No one makes money being mediocre at lots of things or even average at lots of things or even above average at lots of things. You have to be excellent at one thing to make a lot of money. Because like whenever I'll see people, they're like, yeah, dude, I got like this little side hustle where I make like 20 grand, 30 grand over here. And then, my main thing, I make, 80 grand over here. And then I got this other thing I do that I make 30. I'm like, bro, stop. Do your main thing better. Or pick one of the side hustles and really go all in at it, because that's how you'll make 200 grand, 300 grand, or $1 million or whatever. Like nobody, like the thing people confuse is that, yeah, sure, there are rich people who've got like multiple things going on. It was after they had a main thing that was super successful. Nobody like nibbled their way across little things to the top.
Yeah, I'm in the same belief. Like I've believed that for a lot of investors or people that are running their business, it's sort of going balls deep in one thing. And then when it comes to wealth preservation, they might have got, advisors coming in and now they can go, I'll put a little bit here,
Once you're wealthy.
Once you're wealthy.
Yeah.
But 99% of people aren't at that point yet.
Then they never will get there because they're diversifying from the get-go.
Yeah, true. Now, switching gears a little bit, when it comes to real estate and the real estate market, obviously there's been so many predictions going around. Interest rates went down, they went up, they went back down. How does that, one, affect you in your business when it's flipping houses?
Yep.
And two, what does it look like now that there's a change in government, interest rates have started cutting here in America? What does that look like, for the future of prices as well?
Well, I'll tell you what I think will happen here, but I'm actually curious to hear from you. How does what we do in America affect you guys, out of curiosity?
Well, it's not as so when we went through the GFC, things here got affected a lot more than we did back in Australia. But a lot of that PTSD carries over because a lot of the market, all the negative news that comes out, all the positive news, it's all what's the US doing?
Yeah.
And so as soon as the US started cutting rates, there was all this belief that Australia's going to cut rates next meeting.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that we have our own economy and it's driven by different things,
but
and
people
inflation is different, right?
Yeah, but people just perceive it that way out there.
Correct. And so I think that with how it's different, it's that a lot of people still pay attention to the market here in the US as a gauge of confidence for what we could do.
Yeah, if we're like struggling bad, you guys are like, oh crap, this ain't gonna be good.
Yeah, correct. It's like, oh, they're going through it, we're about to go through it.
Right.
And so that's why and in terms of content, how many people are creating Australian real estate content versus how many people are talking about real estate all over the world, especially in the US.
Yeah.
And often people are listening to that more than what they do locally. And as you already know, it's like, yes, there's a global economy side of things and that can affect all bits and pieces, but each market's within its own market.
Yeah, it would seem to me like for you guys, you have your Australian market, you have obviously the US as its own standalone thing that you're watching, and then there's the overall global market.
Correct. And for us, it's like, I guess big part of the topic is, with Trump coming in, tariffs going to be introduced. What does that mean for the Chinese? Because the Chinese have a big part to play in the Australian economy.
Oh, really?
So that's the way that we would look at it, is going, okay, well, we may not be directly affected by their interest rates, although we will be, but not directly. But if they introduce this and that happens, then what happens to the Chinese buyers? Okay, that might affect us now.
Yeah, so I'm curious too, because okay, Trump is going to do tariffs. Like he's really trying to screw China.
Yep.
So what happens if he's successful in kind of really hammering them?
It's a good question. I mean, I'm not really sure. I'll be honest with you. It's probably above my pay grade.
Yeah.
But I think it's all of those. This is the way I like to approach it, is we can try and speculate about X, Y, and Z happening. But the reality is when you're on the ground floor, yes, you've got an eye on what's happening potentially in 6 or 12 months. But I think the way that I've tried to run my company is what's the real hard facts? And do we think anything noticeably different is going to happen in our local economy? If Trump changes something, it probably won't come into the system and affect us directly for another 12 to 18 months.
Exactly. Got it. No, that's cool. So yeah, to answer your original question, as far as what I think will happen next year with Trump and all this stuff, I'm super optimistic. I'm happy he got elected. I am, like the last 4 years in the U.S. economy have been tough. I mean, well, I would say the last 2 years, not the last 4. But yeah, the last 2 years have been very, very tough for real estate. We had a dip when they doubled interest rates and, prices dropped, transaction volume just went so slow. Like it was brutal.
When you're talking about price drops, what are we talking about on average?
Well, once again, right, even in the US, right, we all have our own local economies.
Of course.
So, I can only speak for Vegas, since that's where I'm at, but, prices dropped about 10%. And so when that happened, it caused me to lose millions because at that time I had about 50 flips going on. So you got to imagine, right? I mean, I got probably $20 million worth of property and, we're trying to flip them, sell them, all this stuff. Well, what happens is, 10% drop is basically the margin, the profit margin we're expecting on the flip. So basically all the profit's gone, right? Because of the drop. But on top of that, because properties aren't selling and, they're just slowly dropping and whatever else, our holding costs are going up because it's just taking longer to sell and the price is lower. So it's a double negative for a flipper because now, instead of it taking, 4 or 5 months to sell, it takes 9 months to sell. I wasn't expecting that. So now my price dropped. It took longer. And then I better hope I didn't go over budget on the rehab also. or else I got the triple whammy that just screwed me. So, yeah, it was tough. Basically the whole thing caused me to lose a couple $1,000,000, and, I paid back all my investors, but I personally had to go through that, which was rough. And then, the last year and a half since then, the market's just been slow. It's recovered now. It's basically here in Vegas anyways. It's got back to the peak. So it did recover the 10% over the last 2 years, but still slow. Very, not a lot of transactions, which are not good for flippers. Now, does that mean you can't make money? No, absolutely not. At the end of the day, yeah, I had losers that I had to sell off, but we've had many, many winners since then, okay, that have offset the losses essentially, right? So it just is part of the game. I wish as a flipper, we had during COVID, 2020, 2021, 2022 early, where multiple offers every second the property gets listed, 20 offers, going way over. It was literally printing money as a flipper back then. But yeah, as I look at 2025, I don't think it goes like that, again. I mean, we're fueled by 2%, 3% rates here in the US, and just crazy unprecedented demand that we had never seen before.
So at the moment, is it fair to say that you guys don't have that same level of demand that you had during pandemic when
Absolutely not, no.
Yeah, wow. Because that's a bit different to what we've got back at home.
Okay.
Where Sydney and Melbourne, or Sydney is definitely by far the most expensive market in all of Australia.
Yeah.
And we saw a dip as well in that market by about 7%. But now we hit every month is a new all-time high.
Got it.
And so there's just more and more people flooding in, not just with the local, Australian economy, Australian citizens, but it's also overseas demand. And so we're in a situation where what you just described is exactly what's happening right now, which is multiple offers, people having to buy homes straight away. And this is before interest rates have cut, because we haven't cut yet.
Got it.
So that's where it's interesting to see when people have the flip side, which is, there's this thing called the 18.6-year land cycle. Have you ever heard about this concept? So it's based on years of data and research. I'm not going to bore you with it, but essentially it's that every 18.6-year average, the market across all economies falls. And it's like a massive crash.
Got it.
Right? And so that is supposed to occur in 2026.
Got it.
2026 to 2027, something like that. And so that's getting a bit louder because it's based on the US markets and the UK markets. But my opinion on cycles and things like that is that cycles are great, but they don't affect every market.
Yeah.
And during those times, and you've said there's tough times here, you would still be able to still make money if you buy well.
Yeah.
And this is the stuff that, gets into people's minds because, the media love to come up with a bit of a story. Yeah, exactly. So what sort of advice do you have for people that are sort of sitting on the sidelines going, I don't want to get started because I've seen something online suggesting that, the markets are going to crash this year because it was supposed to crash during all the pandemic and they missed out on everything. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, here's the thing, right? I mean, just let's look at hindsight, right? During 2020, everybody was saying that. And you missed the biggest literal opportunity in real estate for 2+ years.
Yeah.
So then, right, you maybe you jump into the game late when it's all just on fire or whatever else. And then, boom, you would have got crushed when the market actually did drop and, they doubled interest rates. Nobody predicted they would raise them as quick as they did. Now, if anyone would have jumped in even these last 2 years after the fall, they would have been just fine. Yeah, it's slower, but it's not like nothing sells. Things are selling all the time. It's just not like it was. Right? So you would have been totally fine even jumping in now. There was basically let's call it 6-month window where if you were flipping and you would have bought a house in, spring of 2022, you probably got burned and just had really bad timing. Right? But other than that, the last 15 years, you would have always been in an up market. 2010 to 2022 was an up market for 12 years straight. And then we had a mini dip for 6 months, and then now we're back to an up market. And now we have a president who I'm pretty certain is not going to let us go into a recession. He is going to do everything humanly possible to build the best economy ever. He's just not going to let it happen. I can't say I can guarantee that, but that dude will pull every string in the book to ensure that he has the best economy for the next 4 years.
Well, it's because he approaches it like a business.
Yeah.
Right. And so for him,
His reputation's on the line. Dude,
100%.
he ain't gonna let in. He's gonna lower rates. He's gonna do tax cuts. He's gonna give grants and he's literally gonna do everything to make this so easy for business owners.
Will that then lead to higher inflation though?
Who knows, right? I mean, like, he's doing things that nobody has ever done before with like some of the stuff that he's proposing, you know, like these massive tariffs on China and other countries, and then, you know, potentially no capital gains tax or income tax. Like he's proposing a lot of things that we've just never seen before. So like,
Hold on tight.
yeah, because, you know, on one hand, the argument then becomes, oh, well, I mean, like the U.S. gets so many of our goods from China. So, I mean, if you put all these tariffs on China, then, you know, products are going to go up, you know, a ton. But that's not even necessarily true because, you know, he's not going to just do it tomorrow. Like, I think there's going to be a plan of like, hey, in 2026, right, these tariffs do begin. So America, you have 12 months to build your factories, create a competitive environment so that, you know, everybody can prep, right?
I think the end game is that you've always got to have production in-house because you're going to end up having the longevity behind that. You have control.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're relying on a different country or an outsourced business.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, he was absolutely right about it even back in 2016 about how big of a threat they were to us, right? And how they're just stealing jobs, they're stealing, you know, resources and all these things. And then they don't compete fairly either, right? Because China subsidizes all their factories. They're willing to like let these people like sell stuff at nothing to just hurt the US. So it's just like, yeah, throw it back on them. Like, let's compete. Let's make it fair. If they don't play fair, then punish them.
Different set of rules.
Yeah. And like, dude, and it's the same thing in any business, right? Like everything I have here is in-house now. You know, our media production's in-house. We create our own leads in-house. Like, cool, sure, we could outsource it and, you know, all the stuff, but we're going to get better quality. I'm going to have better processes. I can control it better. I'd rather pay guys and their families and stuff who are right here with me every day than, you know, pay somebody else who I just don't even know and never see.
And I imagine speed is like
Speed's
phenomenal.
instantly.
Yep.
Control, quality, all of it's better being in-house. So, yeah, I mean, it makes sense from that standpoint. And
what are your thoughts? I guess we'll finish up on this point, but what are your thoughts around content and how important it is for someone if they're building a business or they're in the business game, doubling down on content? What's your thoughts on it? Because I think my audience knows where I sit with it.
Yeah.
Where are you at with it?
You know what's funny is if you would have asked me this a year or two ago, I would have said, bro, if you're not doing content, you're going to be done. I don't know that I necessarily believe that anymore. Here's what I mean. Certain businesses absolutely need content, okay? Like if you're a real estate agent and you're not putting out content, I don't know how you're going to get a friggin' client, okay? If you're some e-commerce company and you know you got a visual product, like, yeah, you better have people on TikTok doing your product and everything else. But then there's other businesses where it actually isn't that big of a deal. So for example, with my house living business, it needs no content. It's just fine just getting leads, flipping houses, doing our thing. Now, would content help it? For sure. I mean, you know, you'll get deals and referrals from agents who want to sell you their houses and give you a discount. You'll get lenders, you know, private money guys who give you capital to buy a house. So like it helps, but it's definitely not necessary. And I don't think it will ever be totally necessary. But if you got time and you got the money and you got the resources, then, you know, sure, let's go. So, you know, I think there's different industries where it's more important than others, but, you know, absolutely. They're, you know, for example, right, I'm in the education space like I talked about. There used to be a lot of education guys who had courses and coaching programs and all this stuff who all they did was run ads. They didn't even make content. They had no organic and like they were fine. They made great money. They're all gone. If you don't have organic content that people can go binge watch and build trust with and everything else, ain't nobody trusting you. Like it is so much more difficult to gain trust in today's world because there's so much noise. There's so much other content. People are confused. You know, you asked back to the couch flipping person. That couch flipping person isn't just solely aligned with only couch flipping. they're just a hustler. They're open to lots of opportunity. They're like, yeah, I might couch flip, I might house flip, I might day trade, I might, be a salesperson, I might create content. Like they're open to anything. And so to build trust with that person, you're really going to have to make a compelling case through content of like, hey, here's why you should do the thing that I think you should do.
And I suppose moving on from there as well is that if you've got this entire relying nature of your business on paid ads, if that platform changes their rules, suddenly you don't have a base to go back to.
But the opposite is still true for organic, right?
Because, true. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because if you all of a sudden get banned and canceled, what do? You're screwed. So, my business now is both.
Okay.
We're paid and organic. That's the point. That's where I think both merge. And, you mentioned some guys that I've had on my show earlier, like Cardone and Hormozy. So they're the same way. They don't only just do organic. They are running heavy paid, heavy organic. It's both, myself included. I mean, those two, they're running 7 figures a month in paid ads.
As long as you get the return, it's scalable.
Yeah. And you get more attention, you build more trust, you get to sell more product. You just got to figure out how to make it ROI.
Now, finishing up here, I promise I've taken too much of your time.
Oh, no, you're good, man. You're good.
What does it look like for someone who's listening, young person wanting to achieve shit in the next 12 months? What's your couple of minutes of advice for them if they really want to get shit done in the next 12 months?
Well, number one, I'll be real with them. If you're young, okay, you have no excuses. Okay, first off, you got no obligations in life. You ain't got kids, you're probably not married. You have all the time in the world. So I never need to hear a young person say, how am I going to get enough? No, shut up. Okay, you have enough time. So that's number one. Number two, you have nothing to lose when you're young. So a lot of them are like, dude, I'm so scared to risk literally anything. I'm like, dude, I'm going to punch you in the face because you have no idea. Risk it all. Literally, young people should risk it all. They should max out their credit cards. They should go all in on whatever they're going to do. They should try everything under the sun and figure out what works. But to do nothing because you're scared while you're young is so stupid. And just to put it in context for the young people, why I'm being so harsh, today is the easiest day of your life that it will ever be to do the thing. Because every day you get older, it gets harder. Okay, it doesn't get easier. I mean, I'm 35 now. I got 3 kids, 5 and under. I'm married for 11 years now. Like, I have so many more obligations. My body ain't going to be like any better than it is today. Like as I get older, my testosterone keeps going down. My back hurts a little bit more and I'm in great shape. So like, it won't get any easier for me today. It's only going to keep getting harder to do these things. I have more responsibilities. I got more obligations. And, even for the people who, let's just say they're not in the position I'm in, at least business-wise. Okay, if you're a 35-year-old guy and you're still me and you work your W-2, guess what? You got 3 kids, you got a wife and a spouse, you got to provide now. You have so much obligation and it's so hard to take a risk. Like, I understand because, man, if you quit that job and all of a sudden your kids go hungry, dude, that's a scary thought. And so I understand as you get older, it gets harder and harder to take a risk because you actually do have things to lose at that point. So the young people who are scared, grow up and take a risk.
It's crazy because I'm 32. We're about the same age. And 5 years ago, we were like, man, like so many more responsibilities now. I've got no time. And you look back and you're like, bro, what was I thinking?
Yeah, you're like, I was an idiot. I joke with my wife, Mindy. I'm like, what did we used to do before kids? Like, I don't even remember, but boy, did we like waste a lot of time.
Is it hard to balance the work and having a family?
It's interesting. Here's my thing. Everything's hard. Okay. So once again, right, to go back to the young single people, they're like, dude, life's hard, man, when you ain't got money, you don't have skills. It's true. It's hard when you're young and you don't have those things. So you got to go take a risk and figure it out. On the flip side, it's hard running a big company knowing that, you got 50 employees who depend on you. It's still hard. So yeah, whether you're broke and you have no responsibilities, or you've got a big company and you got lots of, it's still hard either way, right? You just choose which one do you want. And so when I think about family, it's like, is it hard, with 3 kids and a wife and balancing it all? Absolutely. But it's also really hard, if I was 35 years old and single and I had no, I didn't have a wife, I didn't have kids, and I'm missing that piece of my life that, I know I want. And it would be hard also too, just
I feel like it'd be more stressful that way.
Way harder today. I've actually talked to a lot of men on my podcast who are ultra successful and single still. So, they're in their 30s, maybe even 40s. And they're like, yeah, dude, it's really hard dating right now. And I go, why? And then, as I've talked to them more, I now understand. I mean, it gets harder. And this is another thing for young people. I think they should all get married early. Okay. I mean, I got married super early and we built it together. But the reason that these older guys are having problems finding good women is because, number one, they have a hard time trusting women now because they're like, man, are they here for my money or whatever else, right? That ain't a problem when you're young and broke. It's for us, right? So they have a problem with that. 2, they have a problem with, now it's like, they're going after older women, and guess what? I don't know the best way to say this, but it's like the best ones got scooped up early. I mean, that's just the reality of the dating pool.
It's got its own set of challenges.
It just is what it is, right? I mean, if you're going to go date, a 35-year-old also, right? If you're not going to go date a 21-year-old girl because you're 40 or whatever, if you want to, cool, whatever. But if you're going to go date somebody that's near your age, odds are she's probably already been married before. She probably also has kids. Or if she hasn't been married yet and she's 35, 40 years old, it's like, well, what the heck?
There might be a reason for it.
Yeah, what's going on here, right? So it just keeps getting harder and harder is my point. Yeah. And both parties also, as you get older, you get more baggage. So it's like, bro, you know how much stupid, terrible things I've done now at 35 that I didn't do when I was 25. The same is true for women, whether you're talking about partners, whether you're talking about just stupid trauma or drama and all this stuff. So now you got to deal with that as you get older. It's like everyone's bringing their own 30, 40 years of baggage into a relationship. Whereas, dude, when we're 20, we haven't done anything super stupid yet.
Yeah. I love that. I'm definitely of the belief that if you have a partner that is on the same page as you, it is like a superpower. Yeah. And I've been with my partner now for almost 8 years.
Yep.
And she came into my life when I really had nothing anyway.
Exactly.
She's for you. Your best investment ever.
Yeah.
Because she's like, now we're doing stuff together and it's really cool. But I can see how important it is to have the right people around you, not just your partner, but also mates and siblings if that's possible too. But Ryan, I've appreciated you inviting me into your home. I love the setup and I've just been motivated now to do even more. And I thank you for making the time to be on the channel.
Yeah, thanks for coming out, man.
Guys, if you want to follow Ryan, you're going to just have to type his name in and you'll see a bunch of content. You'll definitely not miss him. And if you have enjoyed this content, definitely subscribe. Catch you guys in the next one.